2 Timothy, the 4th chapter, the 7th verse. It says, and Terah took his son Abram and his grandson Lot, and the son of Haran, and his daughter-in-law Sarah, his son's Aaron's wife. And they went out with them from Europe of the Chaldean to go to the land of Canaan. And they came to Haran and dwelt there. So the days of Terah were 205 years, and Terah died in Haran. Now, I want you to get a picture real fast. Now, Europe, at the time, there was a lot of adultery going on. And like any parent, if you stayed in a bad neighborhood and they were shooting and kicking doors in and selling drugs on the corner, you would want to get your family together and move them out of that environment. At the time, Terah, there was a lot of adultery going on, and he wanted to move from Europe and take his family to Canaan, the promised land. But in the middle of his process, he stopped in the middle. He never reached the promise in what God had in store for him. And I say again today, you started it, you need to finish it. He stopped in the middle, and in stopping in the middle, the Bible does not say why he stopped, but I can only picture the process of him moving 4,000 years ago with his herds and his flock and his animals and his family, keeping everything in line, moving and trying to get long distance with your whole family and everything on your shoulder. It must have been a task. It must have been weary. Today, when we think we got some problems, because to move, I understand now, you probably spent about a week or a month looking for a house in a different area. And then when you find the house, I understand that they want to take an application on everybody who's in the house. And then when you get the money together, they want first, last, and a deposit. And so you got all this together. Now, wait a minute, now you ain't got the truck. Now you need to get the truck. And then gather some people together that may help you. So your process and the problems that you face ain't nothing to what this man went through. But in the middle of his situation, he stopped. He settled. He never got the promise in which God has promised him. And what we have to understand is that although moving and going from place to place and things have happened in our life that may distract us to get us off track to what God has wants us, we must continue to press on. We must continue to press on. You started it. You need to finish it. Now, when I go back over to the 2 Timothy, the 4th chapter in the 7th verse, this is Paul just saying one thing. He says, I fought a good fight. I have finished the race, and I have kept the faith. Throughout your process of going through lives, we have some ups and downs. You've experienced it. Sometimes you're sick, sometimes you well, sometimes the money flowing in, sometimes it's trickling, and sometimes it's stopped. But as the sister said, one thing that we have to have the confidence on, that when God has started something in your life, like he told Joshua, be of good courage because I'll be with you. We have to be in the confidence that though we can't see it and it may seem like the situation is so terrible, we have to trust that this God that we serve ain't bring us back there to leave us right here. He started something, he's going to finish it. But we must continue to press on. And throughout life, we find ourselves in a difficult situation. We may understand because of the things that we go through, but like Terah on his way going to Canaan, he probably said to himself that, let me stop right here, I'm tired. This ain't the promised land, but it ain't where I used to be. He stopped selling for mediocrity. One thing in life, and when we go through difficulties in life, and God has promised you something, don't allow the enemy to steal what God has already promised you. You think when God gave you the promise, he did not consider the plots of the enemy to get the process, through the process to get to the promise? You're going to have to go through some difficulties, but oftentimes it takes the difficult times to push you to your destiny. Sometimes we lay dormant and we lay on the gift that God has blessed us, and sometimes God calls some turmoil in our life that'll make us step out on some faith, because without it, you were going to miss out on the promise in which God has given you. I remember talking to this young lady one time at the other church, and we used to attend, and we had taught a lesson, and the lady, she'd been dating this guy for 8 years, and he ain't gonna marry her. I'll marry you next year. That time comes, she'll never last you. But God had wanted to give her a husband, because she's been asking. God said, I give you the desires of your heart. I give you the desires of your heart. But she was settling for mediocrity because she thought she couldn't do no better. She thought that this was all it. But one day God caused some turmoil in her life. Old boy got mad with her, packed this stuff up, and went to his mama's house. She cried. She spent some time, because it is in the adversity that we face that makes us stronger, that brings and exposes the great gifts that God has placed in us. Oftentimes, you'll never know how strong you are until you go through something. And the things that you think will break you make you stronger, and you're able to step through that situation. But God has to cause some turmoil in your life. He caused the turmoil in her life, and she stayed on her knees. One day, she ran out of some spaghetti sauce and went on over to Walmart. You know where we go when we look for everything. Hour 12, a little short lady couldn't reach something. She asked this guy on the hall, he said, can you reach that? He said, yeah, I'll get it for you. And they started talking. Started dating. Got married. See, she kept, although he loved her, she wasn't going back. The Bible says like a dog returns to his vomit. I don't get that. The very thing that make you sick, the very thing that made you throw up, why would you go back to it? He left, let him go. God has something better in store for you. But if you keep settling, you will never get the blessing. We have to continue to press to the mark.